What would you do if you received a call in the middle of the night and on the other end of the line, all you heard were strange noises, heavy breathing, and a voice you'd never heard before? Well, that's exactly what happened to Daniel. And worse, that 47-second audio recording may be the only clue we have about what really happened to him that night. Have you ever stopped to think about how many cryptic messages, strange audio recordings, and disturbing calls happen every day without us paying them the attention they deserve? Most of the time, we ignore them, think it's a prank, block the number, and move on. But what if that message wasn't a prank? What if it was, in fact, someone's last cry for help? This is a kind of question that haunts those who follow cases of disappearances with cryptic messages. And Daniel's case is one of the most disturbing you will ever hear. Before we continue, I need you to do something for me. Stay with me until the end of this video, because every detail, every second of this mysterious audio can make all the difference in understanding what really happened. And believe me, what you're about to discover might surprise you in ways you can't even imagine. Daniel was an ordinary guy, the kind you find anywhere. Hardworking, he had friends, a loving family, and plans for the future. Nothing in his life indicated that something like this could happen. But the truth is that disappearances don't discriminate. They don't ask permission, and they often happen when we least expect them. It was on a Tuesday night that everything changed. Daniel left home as usual, said he'd be right back, and simply was never seen again. Now comes the chilling part. Hours after his disappearance, an audio recording was found on his cell phone. An audio recording that no one expected. 47 seconds of pure confusion. Muffled sounds, as if the phone were in his pocket or under something. Noises that sound like hurried footsteps. And then a voice. A voice that no one in Daniel's family or circle of friends recognized. An unknown voice, saying something that to this day has not been fully deciphered. Have you ever experienced this? Have you ever listened to an audio recording or received a message that simply didn't make sense, but left you with that tightness in your chest, that feeling that something was wrong? Well, that's exactly the feeling this audio evokes. Experts in audio forensics have tried to clean up the sound, amplify certain frequencies, and isolate the voices. But even with all the technology available, there are still incomprehensible parts, whispers that seem to carry dark secrets. What makes this case even more intriguing is precisely the context. Why was that audio recorded? Was it intentional? Was Daniel trying to leave a clue? Or did he not even know he was being recorded? And the unknown voice, who was it? A stranger? Someone he knew, but who distorted their voice on purpose? These questions echo in the minds of investigators, the family, and everyone following this mystery. Cases like Daniel's make us reflect on how the unpredictable can knock on our door at any moment. And they remind us that, often, the answers are hidden in small details, in messages that seem meaningless, in disturbing audios that no one wants to listen to twice. But it is precisely in these details that the key to unlocking what happened may lie. And between us, what's most striking isn't just the mystery itself, but the fact that, to this day, no one has been able to fully explain what's in that audio. 47 seconds that have become an obsession for those seeking justice. 47 seconds that could change everything. So now tell me, are you ready to dive headfirst into this investigation? Because from now on, we're going to dissect every second of this audio, every theory raised, every clue that has emerged. And who knows, together, we might uncover something that has gone unnoticed until now. Before we continue to unravel this mystery together, I need to ask you something that will make all the difference, not only for me, but so that more people can learn about Daniel's story and so many other cases that deserve attention. If this topic resonates with you, if you feel that stories like this need to be told and investigated with respect and depth, leave a comment below about what has touched you the most so far. It could be a reflection, your own theory, or even a similar experience that you or someone close to you has gone through. Each comment not only feeds this incredible community we are building, but also helps the algorithm to bring this content to more people who, like us, want answers. And look, if you're feeling that tightness in your chest, that urge to understand what really happened, leave a like on this video. It may seem simple, but this small gesture has a huge impact. Each like shows YouTube that this type of content matters, that real cases deserve to be discussed seriously, and that there's an audience interested in going beyond superficial headlines. That's how we can give voice to stories that are often forgotten. And if you're not yet subscribed to the channel, now is the perfect time. Click that red button and activate the bell. Because here we not only bring you intriguing cases, but we are also committed to investigating every detail, respecting the victims and their families, and creating a space where we can debate, question, and perhaps even help find answers. You are as much a part of this investigation as I am. We are a community of people who believe that the truth matters, that justice matters, and that every story deserves to be heard. Now, with you by my side on this journey, let's dive headfirst into the details of this disturbing audio, because this is where the story starts to get even darker, and I guarantee you won't want to miss a single second of what comes next. Now I want to delve even deeper into the subject, because to understand the weight of this mysterious audio, we need to know who Daniel really was. And look, this part is fundamental. He's not just another name in a news story, not just another face on a missing person poster. Daniel was a real person with dreams, fears, joys, and a whole life ahead of him. And that's precisely why this case affects those who know the story so deeply. Daniel was 26 years old when he disappeared. Young, full of energy, the kind of guy everyone liked to have around. He worked as an administrative assistant at a logistics company in the southern part of the city. It wasn't a glamorous job, but it was honest, and Daniel took it seriously. Always punctual, responsible, and well-liked by his colleagues. Those who interacted with him daily say he had a relaxed manner, cracking jokes during work hours. But when it was time to focus, he focused. He was the kind of person you could trust. Outside of work, Daniel was passionate about music. He played guitar in his free time, loved sharing covers on social media. Nothing professional, just for pleasure. He had a laid-back attitude, you know? He wasn't one to cause trouble. He didn't get involved in anything shady. On the contrary, he was a homebody who liked being with his family, going out with friends occasionally to a bar, watching football on weekends. An ordinary life, but full of meaning for those who loved him. Daniel's mother, Donna Celia, always says in interviews that her son was the breadwinner of the family. After his father passed away years before, Daniel took on many responsibilities. He helped with the bills, took care of his younger sister, and was always there for them. He wasn't perfect, of course. Nobody is. But he was a good son, a good brother, and he had plans. He was saving up to take a technical course. He wanted to grow professionally, maybe one day open his own business. He had that thirst for transformation that you see in someone who really wants to change their life. And then came the day that changed everything. It was a Tuesday, March 17th, an absolutely ordinary day. Daniel woke up early, had breakfast with his mother, and left for work as usual. During the day, he exchanged a few messages with his sister on WhatsApp. Silly things, means everyday conversations. Nothing that indicated any kind of worry or fear. He left work around 6 in the afternoon, as usual. Some colleagues saw him at the bus stop, waved, and he waved back. Everything normal up to that point. Mrs. Celia recounts that Daniel arrived home around 7:30 p.m. He took a shower, had dinner, and watched television with his family for a while. It was a quiet night, without any special events, no arguments, nothing out of the ordinary. Around 9:30 p.m., Daniel received a call. No one knows who it was from. He answered, talked for a few minutes, and then told his mother that he needed to go out quickly, that he would be right back. Mrs. Celia wasn't too worried at the time. After all, Daniel was an adult. Going out at night wasn't unusual. He grabbed his jacket, his cell phone, and left. That was the last time anyone in the family saw Daniel. The last image his mother has of her son is him closing the gate of the house, turning the corner, and disappearing into the darkness of the street. No one imagined that "I'll be right back" would be the last phrase they would hear from him. The hours began to pass. 10 o'clock at night, 11 midnight. Donna Celia tried calling Daniel's cell phone several times, but he didn't answer. She sent messages. Nothing. At first, she thought maybe he had gone to meet a friend, that his cell phone was out of battery. You know how it is? But as the night wore on, her worry grew. At 4 in the morning, when the sun was already beginning to rise and Daniel still hadn't given any news, Donna Celia knew something was wrong. She called her son's closest friends. No one had seen Daniel. No one knew anything. She went to the police station to report his disappearance. But initially, the police followed standard protocol. If an adult leaves home of their own accord, it's necessary to wait a while before considering it an official disappearance. But a mother knows, doesn't she? That instinct never fails. Dona Celia knew that something very wrong had happened to her son. And that's when the search began. Posters were plastered all over the city, friends mobilized, and social media started sharing Daniel's photo. The family went to hospitals, police stations, and forensic institutes. Nothing. It was as if Daniel had simply vanished into thin air. No trace, no concrete clues. Until 3 days later, when the police finally managed to access Daniel's cell phone to the operator, they found it. The audio. That damn 47-second audio that no one can explain to this day. And you know what's most distressing? When you learn Daniel's story, when you understand who he was, the impact of his disappearance becomes even greater. Because it's not just a case, it's a life interrupted. It's shattered plans. It's a family destroyed by uncertainty. Dona Celia says that the worst part isn't even the pain of the loss, but the absence of answers. Not knowing what happened, not having a body to bury, not having someone to blame. It's living in an eternal limbo, where every phone call could be the news she so desperately hopes for, but which she simultaneously fears to hear. This is the hidden truth behind missing persons cases. We see the statistics, the numbers, but we forget that each number is a person. Each number is a Daniel. And each Daniel has a mother, has friends, has a story that deserves to be told. That's why cases like this cannot be forgotten. That's why we need to keep talking, investigating, searching for answers. Because as long as someone is asking, as long as someone cares, there is hope. Hope for justice. Hope for truth. Hope that one day this family can have peace. Comment below, justice for Daniel, if you believe stories like this need to be heard. Now I want to delve even deeper into the subject, because understanding Daniel's last known moments is like putting together a puzzle where each piece can reveal something disturbing. And believe me, when we start putting these pieces together, the story gets even stranger. We're going to reconstruct, minute by minute, the last hours before his disappearance, because it's in these seemingly insignificant details that the greatest revelations are often hidden. As I told you, Daniel left work at 6 o'clock that Tuesday afternoon. But what happened between that moment and the time he left home for the last time? Let's unravel that timeline, because it's crucial. The investigators did meticulous work trying to trace every step, every conversation, every decision Daniel made in those final hours. And what they discovered was both enlightening and disconcerting. At 6:10 p.m., Daniel was at the bus stop near his work. 3 colleagues confirmed seeing him there, with his cell phone in hand, apparently browsing social media or replying to messages. One of them, Marcelo, who worked in the same department, said he waved at Daniel and he returned the wave with a smile. Nothing different, nothing worrying. Marcelo testified that Daniel seemed calm, with the same energy as always. There was no tension on his face, no sign of fear or anxiety. It was just another normal day ending. The bus Daniel usually took passed by at 6:20. The vehicle security cameras confirmed that he boarded at that time. He sat in the back by the window and spent the entire journey on his cell phone. Here's where something interesting begins. The police gained access to his phone's activity logs through his mobile carrier between 6:20 and 6:50. The time he got off the bus near his house, Daniel exchanged messages with at least 4 different people. With his sister, he sent a funny meme about something they had discussed earlier. With a childhood friend, he arranged a barbecue for the following weekend. With another co-worker, he responded to something about a report. And with an unidentified number. Yes, you heard right. An unidentified number. And that detail is crucial, because that was the first appearance of this mysterious contact. The message was short, almost casual. "Hey, can you make it tonight?" Daniel replied, "Depends, what time?" The answer came quickly. "Around 10 is good." And Daniel confirmed. Deal. That's it. Simple as that. But this exchange of messages changed everything. Because it was this commitment, this decision to go out at night, that led Daniel out of the house and, apparently, into the unknown. The investigation attempted to trace this number, but hit a wall. A prepaid SIM card, unregistered, activated a few days before and deactivated shortly after Daniel's disappearance. A dead end. Who was this person? Why use a disposable number? What was Daniel doing at 10 o'clock at night with someone who preferred to remain anonymous? These questions still echo today without concrete answers, but fuel increasingly disturbing theories. Daniel arrived home at 7 in the evening. His mother was in the kitchen preparing dinner. He greeted her, kissed her on the forehead, and went to take a shower. His sister, Sophia, was in her room studying. She remembers Daniel knocking on the door, coming in, and chatting for about 5 minutes about random things. She said he seemed normal, even a little excited, as if he had something fun planned for the evening. But when she asked what he was going to do later, he changed the subject, saying it was just a quick fling, nothing serious. Sophia didn't press her. It was common for Daniel to go out at night occasionally, so there was no reason to be suspicious. At 8 o'clock in the evening, the family had dinner together. Donna Celia made macaroni, Daniel's favorite dish. He ate well, told some funny stories from work, laughed, and interacted. Nothing, absolutely nothing, indicated that he was about to disappear. After dinner, he helped his mother wash the dishes, another gesture that was part of his routine. At 8:30, he sat on the sofa with his family to watch television. They stayed there peacefully until Daniel's cell phone rang. It was 9:23 p.m. The call lasted exactly 4 minutes and 17 seconds, according to the operator's records. Daniel answered in the living room, but soon got up and went to the bedroom. Donna Celia remembers that she could hear his voice, but didn't understand what was being said. She said the tone was normal. It didn't sound like an argument. It didn't sound urgent or desperate, just a conversation. When Daniel returned to the living room, he announced that he needed to leave quickly, that he would be right back. He grabbed his jacket, grabbed his cell phone, said goodbye, and left. At 9:32 p.m., a security camera from a business near Daniel's house recorded him walking alone along the sidewalk toward the main avenue. He had his hands in his pockets, walking at a normal pace without hurrying. He didn't look back. He didn't show any nervousness. He just walked. This was the last image recorded of Daniel before his disappearance. The last visual proof that he was still there, still alive, still continuing his journey, unaware of what was about to happen. From that point on, everything becomes hazy. There are no more cameras, no more witnesses, no more clear records. The phone company shows that Daniel's cell phone remained active until around 10:15 p.m. During that time, he exchanged a few more messages with the unknown number. Vague things like, "I'm arriving, and where exactly?" And then at 10:17 p.m., the last record, a call received from that same unknown number, lasting 1 minute and 43 seconds. Soon after, nothing more. The cell phone was turned off or lost signal, and Daniel simply disappeared. Daniel's friends were interviewed exhaustively. None of them knew of any meeting scheduled for that night. None of them recognized the unknown number. Neither did his family. So, who was it? A new contact? Someone Daniel had recently met and hadn't mentioned to anyone? Or someone he knew but preferred to keep secret for some reason? Each possibility opens up a range of theories, and each theory leads us down a different path, some darker than others. What's most intriguing about this timeline is precisely the normality of it all. Daniel wasn't running away from anything. He showed no signs of fear. He didn't leave a note. He didn't say any emotional goodbyes. He simply went out for an appointment and never came back. And that's what makes this case so disturbing, because it shows how life can change course in the blink of an eye, how a seemingly simple decision can have a devastating impact. Daniel made the decision to go out that night, to meet someone, and that was a decision that changed everything. For him, for his family, for everyone who loved him. And here's the crucial point that leads us directly to the next part of this investigation. If Daniel went out to meet someone, who was that person? And more importantly, what happened at that meeting that resulted in his disappearance and that terrifying audio recording that was found later? Because the hidden truth behind this timeline is that something went very, very wrong that night. And the answers may lie precisely in that 47-second audio recording, right? I want answers. If you also feel that the story hides something much bigger, now I want to delve even deeper into the subject, because we've reached a point that completely changed the course of this investigation. The moment when everything ceased to be just an unexplained disappearance and transformed into something much more sinister, much more disturbing. I'm talking about the discovery of that audio. And look, the way it happened is as strange as the content of the recording itself. 3 days had passed since Daniel's disappearance. 3 days of intense searches, posters plastered throughout the city, desperate calls to hospitals and police stations. The family was devastated, oscillating between hope and despair. Donna Celia could barely sleep, spending the nights awake hoping her son would return through the door. Every time a car passed on the street, she ran to the window thinking it was him. But it wasn't. It never was. Meanwhile, the police were working behind the scenes. They had requested all of Daniel's cell phone records from the telephone company, the entire call history, messages, and a location of the transmission towers. It was a bureaucratic, time-consuming process, but necessary. And it was precisely when this data arrived that the investigation took a completely different turn, because there, in the technical records provided by the operator, was something that no one expected to find. It was a Friday afternoon when the detective in charge of the case, Dr. Renato Figueredo, received the package of information. He was in his office, surrounded by papers, photos, and testimonies. The heavy routine of someone who deals with cases like this every day. But when he began to analyze the digital files, something immediately caught his attention. There was an audio recording. A recording that had been automatically made by the operating system of Daniel's cell phone on the night of his disappearance at 10:19 p.m. 2 minutes after the last recorded call, the detective hesitated for a moment before pressing play. He had enough experience to know that this type of evidence could change everything. And it did. In the first few seconds, all that could be heard were muffled noises, as if the cell phone were in a pocket or under something. There were sounds of movement, of fabric brushing against a microphone, and then voices, distorted voices, difficult to understand. One of them seemed to be Daniel's, but it was so muffled that it was impossible to be sure. And the other voice, the unknown one, was even more enigmatic, deep, tense, saying something incomprehensible. Dr. Renato listened to the audio 3 times in a row, trying to decipher what was being said. He felt a chill run down his spine. It wasn't just the content of the audio that disturbed him. It was the atmosphere. There was something wrong with that recording, something that conveyed a sense of imminent danger, of contained violence. He immediately called the technical team and requested that they conduct a complete forensic analysis of the file. They needed to clean the audio, amplify the voices, try to extract any useful information. But before any technical analysis could take place, the detective had a difficult decision to make. Should he share the audio with Daniel's family? On the one hand, they had the right to know. On the other, the content was too disturbing and could cause even more suffering. He decided to first conduct a preliminary assessment with the team and only then make that decision. The following Monday, the forensic team presented their initial report. They had managed to isolate some frequencies and reduce some of the background noise. But even so, the audio remained an enigma. 47 seconds of recording that seemed to contain much more than they could reveal. What became clear, however, was that there were at least 2 distinct voices. One of them, probably Daniel's, sounded tense, almost whispering. The other voice, the unknown one, had a more assertive, more controlling tone. There were also ambient sounds, something that seemed to be wind. Perhaps they were in an open place. Footsteps, as if someone were walking on something uneven, possibly dirt or gravel. And then, in the final seconds of the recording, a higher-pitched sound, almost like a muffled scream or an object being dragged. And then silence. The recording simply ended. Daniel's cell phone was turned off or lost signal soon after. When Mrs. Celia was finally informed about the existence of the audio recording, she insisted on listening to it. The police officer tried to dissuade her, explaining that the content was disturbing and that perhaps it would be better to wait for a more detailed analysis. But a mother doesn't wait. She needed to hear her son's voice, even under those circumstances. And when she did, the impact was devastating. She broke down in tears, clutching her cell phone as if she could somehow reach Daniel through that audio. She listened to it several times, trying to recognize words, trying to understand what was happening, trying to find some clue that could lead to him. Sophia, Daniel's sister, also wanted to listen. She had a theory that she might be able to identify the unfamiliar voice if it was someone Daniel knew. But no, it wasn't anyone she recognized. And that made everything even more frightening. Who was this person? Where had they come from in Daniel's life? And why had that particular night turned into something so dark? The discovery of this audio completely changed the mindset of the investigation. Before, there was a possibility that Daniel had left of his own accord, that he was hiding somewhere, that perhaps he would return on his own. But now, with that recording, it was clear that something violent had happened. The case ceased to be treated as a disappearance and began to be investigated as a possible kidnapping or even something worse. Local media began covering the case more intensely. The story of the mysterious audio spread, and soon Daniel became known not only in the city, but throughout the state. Television programs specializing in police cases dedicated entire episodes to the disappearance. Experts in forensic audio analysis were consulted. Criminal psychologists gave their opinions on the profile of who might be behind it. But even with all this attention, answers remained scarce. What intrigued investigators most was the exact moment the recording was made. 10:19 p.m. This meant that Daniel was, at that moment, somewhere with the unknown person. And whatever was happening, his cell phone captured it. Was it accidental? Did Daniel activate the recording on purpose, trying to leave evidence? Or was it simply a system malfunction that, for some reason, started recording on its own? These questions remain unanswered to this day. The journey of this investigation became an obsession for many people, not only for the family and the police, but for an entire community that was touched by this story. Because deep down, we all know that this could happen to anyone. A simple decision, a seemingly harmless encounter, and suddenly, life changes forever. Daniel's audio is a disturbing reminder how the hidden truth behind a disappearance can be recorded in fragments, in seconds captured by chance, in voices that echo without explanation. And here's the most chilling part. Even after all the technical analysis, even after all the efforts to clean and amplify that audio, there are still parts that no one can completely decipher. There are words that seem to be right there on the tip of the tongue, but they escape. There are sounds that suggest something but confirm nothing. It's as if the audio were a deliberately undecipherable enigma, a message that Daniel tried to leave, but that the universe insists on keeping partially hidden. Comment below, I need to hear this audio, if you also feel this agonizing curiosity. Now I want to delve even deeper into the subject, because the time has come to dissect what's really in that audio. And when I say dissect, I mean literally second by second, because every fraction of those 47 seconds may hold the key to understanding what happened to Daniel. So take a deep breath, because what you're about to hear is a detailed analysis that will make you question every sound, every noise, every silence captured in that recording. Let's start from the beginning. The first 5 seconds of the audio are practically incomprehensible. What you hear is a muffled noise, as if the cell phone were in a pocket or perhaps under a coat. It's that characteristic sound of fabric rubbing against a microphone, you know? That noise we make unintentionally when our phone is tucked away. And it picks everything up in a distorted way. But here's the interesting detail. The experts noticed a pattern in this movement. It's not random. It's as if someone were walking quickly with hurried steps, and the cell phone swinging in their pocket was capturing every movement. Between the 5th and 12th tracks, the audio begins to clear up a bit. There's still the rustling of fabric, but now it's possible to hear something else. Ambient sounds begin to emerge. And here it starts to get interesting, because what the experts identified in this segment was the sound of wind. Not a strong, stormy wind, but that constant wind you find in open places, without many buildings around. This suggests that Daniel wasn't in an enclosed environment, like a building or a house. He was outside, possibly in some open field or in a less urbanized area. Besides the wind, There's another sound that stands out in this area. It's subtle, almost imperceptible if you're not paying attention, but it's there. A rhythmic, repetitive sound that experts believe to be footsteps on gravel or uneven ground. It's not the sound of footsteps on asphalt, which would be more defined. It's something muffled, more irregular, as if the person were walking on unpaved terrain. And the most intriguing thing, there are at least 2 sets of footsteps. This confirms that Daniel wasn't alone. Someone was with him, walking beside him or perhaps behind him, between the 10th and 22nd mark. The recording undergoes a significant transformation. The fabric noises decrease drastically, as if the cell phone had been repositioned or as if Daniel had stopped moving so much. And it is here that the voices begin to appear. The first voice heard is muffled, almost a whisper, and forensic analysis strongly suggests it is Daniel's voice. It's not possible to understand exactly what he's saying, but the tone is unmistakable. It's a tone of tension, of nervousness. It's not someone speaking casually. It's someone who is clearly uncomfortable with the situation. Daniel's family, upon hearing this part, immediately recognized the tone. Dona Celia said it was the way Daniel spoke when he was worried about something, when he was trying to remain calm but was nervous inside. It's that tone we use when we're trying not to show fear, but the fear is there latent, infiltrated in every word. Experts tried using various amplification software to capture what Daniel was saying, but the result was frustrating. There are at least 3 words that seem distinguishable, but even so, there is no absolute certainty. Some technicians swore they heard something like, "I don't understand," or "that wasn't it." Others disagree, saying it could be "where" or "when." It's a true journey of interpretation where each person seems to hear something different. And then comes the most disturbing part of the audio. Between the 20th and 30th second, the unknown voice enters. And this voice is completely different from Daniel's. It's a deep voice, more assertive, more controlled. There's no nervousness there. There's something more calculated, more deliberate. The tone is firm, almost authoritarian, like someone who is in control of the situation. And this completely changes the dynamic of what is happening, because it becomes clear that it's not a conversation between equals. It's a situation where one person has power over the other. The forensic analysis attempted to identify specific characteristics of this unknown voice: accent, regionalism, speech patterns. But the audio quality makes this extremely difficult. What the experts were able to determine is that it is a male voice, probably belonging to someone between 30 and 50 years old, and that there are no evident signs of a strong regional accent. It's a voice that could belong to anyone, which makes the investigation even more complicated. There's nothing distinctive enough to create a clear profile, but there is one word, a single word in that passage, that virtually all analysts agree they heard clearly, and that word is "now." The unknown voice says "now" with disturbing clarity, and the context of that word, the moment it is uttered, suggests urgency, suggests an order being given. What should happen now? That is the question everyone asks. What was about to happen at that moment that made the unknown voice say "now" in that way? Between the 30th and 40th second, the audio enters a chaotic phase. The noises return with intensity. There is sound of abrupt movement, as if there was some kind of fight or physical confrontation. It's not possible to say for sure, but the impression is that something violent is happening. There's a sound that several experts have identified as something falling or being dragged. And there's also what seems to be panting, like someone exerting themselves physically or in a state of panic. In this excerpt, other ambient sounds also appear, helping create a mental image of the place where everything is happening. There is what seems to be the distant sound of a car passing by, but very far away, as if they were on a secondary road or in an area far from urban activity. There are no horns, no crowd sounds, no indication that they are near residential or commercial areas. Everything indicates isolation, a place where shouting would not bring help. And then we get to the last 7 seconds. And these are, without a doubt, the most chilling. There's a sudden shift in the audio's atmosphere. The sounds of fighting, if that's what they were, cease abruptly. What you hear is a tense silence, broken only by the sound of the wind and heavy breathing. And then, right at the end, in the last 2 or 3 seconds, there's something that divides opinions among everyone who has analyzed it. Some swear they hear a muffled scream, as if someone had been prevented from screaming completely. Others say it's just noise from the equipment itself, a digital artifact without real meaning. But most agree that there's something there, something that conveys despair, something that freezes the blood of the listener. And then at the 47th second, the recording simply ends. There is no natural ending, no gradual closure. It's an abrupt cut, as if the cell phone had been forcibly turned off or as if it had instantly lost signal. And after that, nothing more. Daniel's cell phone was never turned on again, never gave a signal again. It's as if that moment, captured in those 47 seconds, was the last record of his existence. The transformation that this audio caused in the investigation was profound, because now it wasn't just about finding Daniel anymore. It was about understanding what those sounds meant, about deciphering that sonic enigma that seemed to contain all the answers but refused to reveal them completely. Each person who listens to this audio has a slightly different interpretation, sees a different hidden truth in the noises and voices. And perhaps that's exactly what makes this case so fascinating and at the same time so frustrating. Comment below. I hear something different if you feel that each analysis reveals a new layer of this mystery. Now I want to delve even deeper into the subject, because after all this analysis of the audio, of each captured sound, of each whispered word, the inevitable question arises: what really happened to Daniel that night? And it is here that the investigation divides into several strands, several theories that attempt to explain the inexplicable. Each of them has its strengths, its evidence that seems to make sense, but also its contradictions that leave doubts in the air. Let's explore the main theories that have emerged throughout this investigative journey, because understanding these possibilities is fundamental to seeing the complete picture of the case. The first theory, and perhaps the most obvious considering the disturbing audio, is that of kidnapping. This hypothesis gained strength soon after the discovery of the recording, because many elements point in that direction. Think about it. Daniel left home to meet someone who used a disposable number, someone he apparently didn't know well enough to discuss with family or friends. The audio captures what appears to be a tense situation, with an unknown voice giving orders, sound suggesting physical confrontation, and then the cell phone is abruptly turned off. All of this fits the pattern of a planned kidnapping. The investigators who support this theory point to some specific details. The disposable number, for example, is a common tactic in premeditated crimes. No one uses a temporary SIM card for an innocent conversation. Furthermore, the meeting time, 10 o'clock at night, in a seemingly isolated location, as suggested by the ambient sounds in the audio, also indicates premeditation. The person who called Daniel deliberately chose a time and place where there would be fewer witnesses, less chance of interference. And the fact that Daniel was taken to this location suggests that he was deceived, that he believed he was going to something legitimate, when in reality he was walking straight into a trap. But this theory also has its weaknesses. The main one is the total absence of a ransom demand. In kidnapping cases, especially when there's planning involved, the objective is usually financial. But nobody, absolutely nobody, contacted Daniel's family asking for money, making demands, giving any kind of instruction. And that is extremely strange. Why would someone kidnap Daniel without a clear motivation? The family wasn't rich. Daniel had no known enemies. There was no apparent reason for anyone to want to keep him captive. The second theory suggests that the meeting somehow went wrong. Perhaps Daniel was going to meet someone for some kind of business deal, something that seemed safe but quickly spiraled out of control. This is a theory that many close to Daniel vehemently reject, because they knew his character and knew he didn't get involved in anything illegal. But the reality is that sometimes people make decisions that deviate from their usual pattern, especially when there is financial pressure or other unknown motivations. Some investigators speculate that Daniel might have been trying to buy something, perhaps a second-hand item advertised online, or maybe he was responding to an offer for extra work, something that promised quick money. And these types of encounters, when they involve strangers and take place in isolated locations, can quickly turn into dangerous situations. The person on the other side could have had criminal intentions from the start, planning to rob whoever showed up for the encounter. And if Daniel resisted, tried to flee, or confronted the assailant, this would explain the sounds of a struggle captured in the audio. This theory has the advantage of explaining why there was no ransom demand. If the objective was simply to rob Daniel, take what he had of value, and flee, there would be no reason to maintain contact afterward. The crime would have been isolated, violent, but without subsequent repercussions. The problem is that there is no concrete evidence that Daniel was involved in any type of transaction or business at the time. His bank records show no suspicious activity. His cell phone conversations reveal no negotiations. Nothing indicates that he was planning to buy or sell anything. The third theory is darker and involves the possibility that Daniel unknowingly became involved in something dangerous. This hypothesis suggests that perhaps he witnessed something he shouldn't have, or that someone believed he knew compromising information. The mindset behind this theory is that the arranged meeting was not random, but rather a way to silence Daniel before he could talk about something. Several details support this theory. The fact that the unknown voice in the audio sounds so controlled, so deliberate, suggests someone who knows what they're doing, who isn't acting on impulse. Furthermore, the care taken in using a disposable number, choosing an isolated location, and ensuring there were no witnesses, all of this points to a level of planning that goes beyond a common crime. It's the kind of behavior you'd expect from someone trying to cover their tracks, who wants to ensure nothing is traced back to them. But again, we run into a problem. There is no evidence that Daniel was involved in any situation that would justify this type of action. He didn't work in sensitive areas. He didn't have access to privileged information. He had no declared enemies. His life was, by all available records, absolutely ordinary. So what could he have seen or known that would deserve such a drastic response? This question remains unanswered, and it is precisely this lack of clear motivation that makes this theory as frustrating as it is intriguing. And then we have a fourth theory, which some consider less likely but cannot be completely ruled out: the possibility of an accident that got out of control. Perhaps Daniel went to meet someone for something completely innocent, a casual conversation, a favor he was doing, and during that meeting something went wrong. Perhaps there was an argument that escalated, perhaps a physical accident, a fall, an unintentional injury that led to serious consequences. In this scenario, the person who was with Daniel panicked. Instead of calling for help, instead of taking him to a hospital, they decided to hide what had happened. And this decision, motivated by fear of legal consequences, by the instant transformation of an accident into a crime, would explain why Daniel disappeared without a trace. The person responsible would have done everything to erase the evidence, to ensure that nothing connected them to the disappearance. This theory would explain why there was no ransom demand, why there were no further contacts, why everything simply ceased after that night. If it was an accident followed by a cover-up, the objective would be precisely to make Daniel disappear completely, leaving no clues that could lead back to the person responsible. The audio, in this context, will be the accidental recording of a moment of panic, of decisions made under extreme pressure, of a situation spiraling out of control. The impact of these theories on the investigation is enormous, because each one leads the investigation down completely different paths. If it's a kidnapping, the police should focus on known criminals, on patterns of similar crimes, on possible witnesses who saw suspicious movements. If it's a date gone wrong, they should investigate online ads, suspicious job offers, anything Daniel might have responded to in the days before. If its involvement was something dangerous, they would need to delve into the background of his life, look for hidden connections, investigate people and situations that aren't on the surface. And if it was an accident, they should focus on who was close to Daniel that day, who had reasons to meet him, who might have panicked in the face of a tragedy. The truth is that each theory has its merits and its flaws. And perhaps the real answer is a combination of elements from several of them, or perhaps it's something we haven't yet been able to fully see. What we know for sure is that 47-second audio recording holds a key to understanding what happened, but the door that this key opens remains locked, hidden somewhere among the noises, voices, and silences captured in that recording. Comment below, which theory makes the most sense, because your perspective might reveal something we haven't considered yet. Now I want to delve even deeper into the subject. Because of all the pieces of this disturbing puzzle, there is one that stands out as a central enigma, the mystery everyone wants to unravel. Who owns that unknown voice? Because ultimately, identifying that person would practically solve the entire case. And that's precisely why the investigation dedicated an enormous amount of resources trying to answer this seemingly simple question. what has turned out to be one of the most frustrating and intriguing aspects of this whole story. Let's start with the basics. The voice captured in the audio is definitely male. Experts have been able to confirm this beyond a shadow of a doubt. But from there, everything becomes nebulous, open to interpretation, full of possibilities that lead nowhere. The first step in the investigation was to try to find some recognition from people close to Daniel. The family listened to the audio repeatedly. Friends were called in for their opinions, and work colleagues were consulted. The question was always the same. Do you recognize this voice? And the answer, frustrating and consistent, was always no. Dona Celia spent days listening to that audio, trying to find some familiarity in that deep, controlled tone. She knew practically all her son's friends, was in contact with his work colleagues, and was present in much of his social life. If that voice belonged to someone from Daniel's circle, she should recognize it. But she didn't. And this raised a disturbing question. Could it be someone completely new in his life? Someone Daniel had recently met and, for some reason, hadn't mentioned anyone? The police then expanded the investigation. Comparisons were made with the voices of people who had some connection, however remote, with Daniel, former schoolmates, distant acquaintances, even people who had interacted with him on social media. Vocal analysis technology was employed, creating an acoustic profile of the unknown voice and comparing it with dozens, then hundreds of samples. But nothing matched. No significant correspondence was found. It was as if that voice belonged to a ghost, someone who left no trace in any database, in any known record. What makes this voice even more intriguing is precisely the tone it carries. It's not a nervous voice. It's not someone screaming in despair or speaking chaotically. On the contrary, it's a voice that conveys control, a voice that knows exactly what it's doing. When you hear that now pronounced so clearly in the audio, what you feel is not emotional urgency. It's calculated determination. It's the tone of someone who is executing a plan, who is in command of the situation, who has no doubts about what needs to be done. Forensic psychologists were consulted to try to create a profile of the person behind that voice. And the conclusions were disturbing. The mentality demonstrated there is not that of someone acting on impulse. The way the words are pronounced, the evident emotional control, the absence of hesitation, all of this suggests experience. Not necessarily experience in crime, but experience in high-pressure situations, in moments where it is necessary to remain calm and make quick decisions. It's the kind of behavior you would expect from someone trained to handle extreme situations, or someone who's been through similar situations before. Some investigators have raised the possibility that this might not be the first time this person has done something like this. The coldness shown in the audio is not typical of someone committing a crime for the first time. People experiencing violence or criminal situations for the first time tend to show nervousness, indecision, and signs of internal conflict. But that voice shows none of that. It is confident, assertive, almost professional in the way it communicates. And this opens a frightening door. Could Daniel be a victim of someone who had done this before? Could there be other victims who simply haven't been connected to this case? The investigation attempted to find patterns in unsolved disappearance cases in the region and surrounding areas. They looked for cases with similar modus operandi: use of disposable numbers, meetings arranged at night, disappearances without a trace. And you know what's most frightening? They found some cases that had elements in common. They weren't identical, but they shared certain characteristics that couldn't be ignored. Young adults who disappeared after leaving home for unspecified dates, cell phones that abruptly stopped working, families who never heard from them again. Was it a coincidence, or was there a hidden connection between these cases? But without being able to compare voices, without physical evidence directly connecting the cases, these suspicions remain in the realm of speculation. What the investigators had was a possible pattern, but no concrete proof. And in criminal investigations, possibilities are not enough. Solid evidence is needed, and that is exactly what was lacking. Another intriguing aspect of the voice is that it doesn't show a strong regional accent. Forensic linguistics experts who analyze the audio stated that the person speaks with neutrality that makes it difficult to determine their geographic origin. This could mean several things. Perhaps the person is from a region where the accent is naturally more neutral, Or perhaps it's someone who has traveled extensively and whose way of speaking has been influenced by various places. Or even, and this is the most disturbing theory, perhaps it's someone consciously disguising their natural way of speaking to avoid identification. This last possibility completely transforms the nature of what we are dealing with. Because if the person was deliberately altering their voice, it indicates a level of premeditation that goes far beyond an opportunistic crime. It indicates planning. It indicates that this person knew they could be recorded, knew their voice could be used to identify them, and took steps to prevent this. It's the kind of precaution that shows a calculating mind, someone who thinks several steps ahead, someone who understands how investigations work, and actively tries to sabotage the process. Daniel's family had to deal with a very specific anxiety related to that voice. Because every time they go out on the street, every time they hear someone talking, there's that persistent doubt. Could it be him? The person at the supermarket checkout, the man walking on the sidewalk, the neighbor who just moved into the building. Any one of them could be the owner of that voice. And this created a feeling of constant paranoia, an inability to trust, a transformation in the way you see the world around you. Donna Celia confessed in an interview that she sometimes wakes up in the middle of the night, swearing she heard that voice somewhere during the day. She mentally relives the audio, compares it to all the voices she has heard, and is tortured by the uncertainty. It's as if the unknown voice has become a constant presence in her life, a specter that haunts her without physical form, without a face, without identity, but with a devastating impact on her peace of mind. And here's something few consider. What if the person whose voice it is following the case? What if they know they're being sought, that their audio has been analyzed by dozens of experts, that their voice has been heard by thousands of people through media coverage? How does that person feel knowing this? Are they afraid of being discovered? Are they regretful for what they did? Or is there a dark satisfaction in seeing that, despite all the technology, all the investigative efforts, they remain invisible, untouchable, protected by anonymity? These are questions that reveal not only the mysteries of the case, but also the psychological complexity of those who commit such crimes and manage to escape justice. Because in the end, identifying a voice would mean identifying the person, and identifying the person would mean finding Daniel, or at least discovering what happened to him. The whole truth is trapped in that deep, controlled voice, in those 47 seconds of audio that carry more weight than any physical evidence ever could. Write this down. That voice haunts me. If you also feel the weight of this enigma that seems impossible to solve. Now I want to delve even deeper into the subject, because after all this analysis of the audio and the theories that have emerged, it's crucial to understand what the authorities actually did, what paths the investigation took, and why. Even with so much effort, Daniel's case remains without a definitive resolution. And look, when we delve into behind-the-scenes aspects of this investigation, it becomes clear that the lack of answers wasn't due to a lack of trying. It was because this case presented unique challenges, obstacles that tested every available resource. Let's start from the beginning. In the first 48 hours after Daniel's disappearance, which are considered crucial in any case of this type, the police initiated standard protocol. A team was specifically assigned to the case, led by Detective Dr. Renato Figueiredo, who had over 20 years of experience in crimes against persons. The first action was to map Daniel's entire last known route, from the moment he left work until the point where the security camera last captured him walking towards the main avenue. The search began immediately in that region. Teams were sent to scour vacant lots, abandoned areas, riverbanks, anywhere there might be any trace of Daniel or something that might have happened to him. Sniffer dogs were used, trying to pick up any trace of his scent from clothing provided by the family. But the dogs couldn't follow a consistent trail. There were vague indications in some directions, but nothing definitive, nothing that led to any specific place. It was as if Daniel had simply evaporated after that last image on the camera. Alongside the physical searches, the digital investigation was in full swing. The police's technical team delved into Daniel's cell phone to the operator's records, analyzing every message, every call, every movement the device made before being turned off. That's how they found the unknown number. That prepaid chip that became one of the most frustrating clues in the case. They tracked where the chip was purchased, tried to access security cameras from establishments near the point of sale, but the trail quickly went cold. The chip had been activated anonymously, and there were no clear visual records of who acquired it. Cell phone towers provided information about the approximate last location of Daniel's cell phone. The data showed that he was in a semi-rural area on the outskirts of the city, in a sparsely populated region. It was a transition zone between urban and rural areas, with some scattered farms, vacant lots, and few residences. The police organized an intensive search operation in this specific area. For 3 consecutive days, more than 50 police officers and volunteers searched every accessible square meter. Helicopters flew over the region, and thermal cameras were used to try to detect any anomaly that could indicate the presence of a body or some structure where someone might be hiding. But they found nothing. Absolutely nothing. No piece of clothing, no personal belongings of Daniel's, no sign of a struggle, no disturbance in the ground that could indicate a recent burial. It was as if the ground had swallowed Daniel without leaving a trace, and that is extremely rare in criminal investigations. Normally, there is always something, some small detail that escaped, some microscopic evidence that could be detected, but in this case, there was an absolute void of physical evidence. The investigation then shifted its focus to potential suspects. The police compiled a list of everyone who had any kind of relationship with Daniel, even a distant one, former colleagues who had parted ways on bad terms, acquaintances who had had disagreements with him, anyone who might have any reason, however small, to want to harm him. Each of these people was interviewed, their alibis verified, their communications analyzed. And you know what they discovered? That Daniel was genuinely loved by practically everyone who knew him. There were no significant conflicts, no unpayable debts, no personal disputes. There were essentially no obvious suspects. This forced the investigation to consider broader possibilities. Perhaps the culprit wasn't someone Daniel knew. Perhaps it was a stranger, someone he encountered by chance or through specific circumstances that day. The police began investigating Daniel's online activities, social media profiles, apps he used, any platform where he might have interacted with strangers. They searched forums, discussion groups, buy and sell apps. But Daniel had a rather modest online presence. He wasn't active in many places. He didn't have interactions with strangers that could raise red flags. A significant development occurred when the police decided to make a public appeal. They released parts of the case through the media, asking anyone who had seen anything that night in that area to get in touch. The response was greater than they expected. Dozens of calls came into police station. People saying they had seen suspicious cars, strange movements, unusual noises. Each of these leads was meticulously investigated. Teams were sent to verify reports, interview witnesses, cross-reference information. But most of the reports led nowhere. They were vague information, imprecise memories, or simply coincidences with no real connection to the case. However, one account stood out. A resident of the area where Daniel's cell phone last signaled said that around 10 o'clock that night, she heard what sounded like voices arguing. She didn't see anything because she was inside her house, but she remembers finding it strange because that area was usually very quiet at night. When asked if she could describe the voices, she said they were male, at least 2 people, but she couldn't make out what was being said. The police investigated this lead intensely, but without more concrete details, and without being able to confirm that it was actually related to Daniel. It remained just another unconfirmed possibility. As the months passed, the investigation entered that difficult phase that every case without a quick resolution faces. New leads stopped emerging. Existing ones had been exhausted, and the team needed to make decisions about how to allocate resources. Daniel's case was not closed. It's important to make that clear. It remains officially open to this day. But the practical reality is that without new evidence, without new testimonies, the active investigation slowed considerably. There is information that the police cannot disclose publicly, and this frustrates many people, including the family. But there are legitimate reasons for this. Specific details of the audio. For example, certain excerpts that have been deciphered but could compromise the investigation if made public. The mentality behind this is that if the person responsible knows exactly what the police have, they can take steps to destroy evidence or alter their story. So certain information is kept strategically secret, not due to a lack of transparency, but due to investigative necessity. The transformation this case brought to local investigation protocols was significant. The police realized that cases involving digital communication through disposable numbers were becoming increasingly common and increasingly difficult to trace. This led to discussions about stricter legislation for the sale of prepaid SIM cards, the need for mandatory identification, and ways to make it more difficult to use these resources for criminal purposes. But legislative changes take time, and in Daniel's case, they came too late. One of the most difficult decisions that Detective Figueredo had to make was when to consider the possibility that Daniel might no longer be alive. Nobody wants to reach that conclusion, especially when there is no body, when there is no physical evidence of death. But statistically, the longer the time without contact, without signs of life, the lower the probability of a positive outcome. This was an extremely delicate conversation he needed to have with the family, explaining that although hope should not be abandoned, it was also important to be prepared for other possibilities. To this day, the police periodically receive new information about the case. Sometimes it's someone who has just remembered something. Sometimes it's a prisoner who claims to have heard something from another inmate. Sometimes it's an amateur researcher who believes they have found a connection that went unnoticed. Each piece of information is evaluated, and those that seem to have some merit are investigated. But so far, none of these new leads have resulted in significant progress. The impact of this case on the local police community was profound. For the investigators involved, especially Detective Figueredo, this became one of those cases that you carry with you for the rest of your career. The one that wasn't solved, the one where the answers remain elusive, the one that makes you question if there was anything more that could have been done. And these doubts, this uncertainty, weigh heavily not only on Daniel's family, but also on those who swore to find answers and still haven't. Comment below, I respect their work, if you recognize the complexity of what these teams face. Now I want to delve even deeper into the subject, because behind all the technical details, all the theories and forensic analyses, there's something that cannot be measured in decibels or analyzed by computers: the devastating human impact that this disappearance caused. And when we look at the people who love Daniel, when we understand the emotional journey they've been on since that fateful Tuesday, it is impossible not to feel the weight of this absence that has lingered for so long without answers. Dona Celia is no longer the same person she was before that night. Those who knew her before Daniel's disappearance say she was a vibrant woman, full of energy, always smiling, always taking care of everyone around her. But the transformation that the loss brought is visible in every aspect of her life. She aged years in a matter of months. The sleepless nights, the tears that won't stop falling, the constant anguish of not knowing if her son is alive, if he is suffering, if he is alone somewhere needing help. This corrodes the soul in a way that words cannot fully capture. She keeps Daniel's room exactly as he left it that night. The jacket he didn't take is still hanging on the chair. His guitar remains in the corner of the room, leaning against the wall, waiting for fingers that may never again touch its strings. She says she goes into the room every day, sits on his bed, and talks as if he were still there. She tells him about her day, about family news, about the little everyday things a mother shares with her son. It's the way she found keep Daniel alive, to not let his absence completely erase his presence in that house. Sophia, the younger sister, carries a different kind of pain. She was 19 when Daniel disappeared, at the beginning of adulthood, full of plans and dreams. Daniel was more than a brother to her. He was a mentor, a protector, someone who was always there during important moments. And now she must navigate life without that support, without knowing if she will ever have a chance to tell him everything she didn't say, to thank him for all the times he was there when she needed him. She says guilt is a constant companion. The guilt of not asking more about where he was going that night, of not insisting on knowing details, of simply letting him leave without asking more questions. Rationally, she knows she couldn't have predicted what would happen, but the heart doesn't work with logic, especially when it comes to loss and regret. She lives an eternal what if, in that mental cycle of rewriting the past in scenarios where she made different choices, and Daniel is still there. Daniel's friends mobilized in an impressive way in the first few months. They organized their own searches, created social media pages dedicated to sharing information about the case, held vigils, and spread posters throughout the city. There was a collective determination to bring Daniel back, a refusal to accept that he had simply disappeared. But as time went by, as the leads cooled and hopes dwindled, that energy dissipated. Not for lack of love or concern, but because life goes on, because people need to work, take care of their own families, and deal with their own lives. And this creates an additional layer of pain for Mrs. Celia and Sophia. The feeling that the world is moving on while they remain trapped in that moment, in that March night that never ends. Seeing other happy families, seeing Daniel's friends building their lives, getting married, having children, achieving success, all of this becomes a painful reminder of what Daniel is missing, of the experiences being stolen from him, of the future that was interrupted so abruptly and inexplicably. The family's appeal is simple, but laden with all the emotion a mother and sister can feel. They just want answers. No matter how painful those answers may be, no matter what they have to hear, they need to know, because living in uncertainty is a unique form of torture. It's not being able to grieve. It's not being able to find closure. It's being eternally suspended between hope and despair. Donna Celia says in interviews that sometimes she wishes someone would simply call and tell her where Daniel's body is, because at least then she could bury him with dignity. She could have a place to go and talk to him. She could begin to truly process the loss. But there's also that spark of hope that refuses to die completely. That voice in the back of the mind that whispers that maybe, just maybe, Daniel is still alive somewhere. Maybe he has amnesia. Maybe he's trapped in some situation he can't escape. Maybe he's trying to go back, but can't find his way. It's a hope that hurts as much as it comforts, because it keeps the wound always open, always bleeding, never allowing it to heal completely. The impact of this case extended far beyond Daniel's immediate family. The entire community was affected in ways that are difficult to quantify. Mothers began to fear letting their children go out at night. Young people became more cautious about meeting people they didn't know well. There was a sense that if this could happen to someone like Daniel, someone responsible, well-liked, with no involvement in anything dubious, then it could happen to anyone. And this collective fear changed the community's mindset, making people more distrustful, more vigilant, more aware of the dangers that can be hidden in seemingly harmless situations. Schools in the region began giving talks on personal safety, on the importance of always letting someone know where you're going and who you will be meeting. Location tracking apps became more popular among concerned families. There was a tangible transformation in how people dealt with the idea of safety and risk. Daniel's case became an example, a cautionary tale that parents told their children, a reminder that the world can be unpredictable and dangerous in ways we cannot always anticipate. For the professionals involved in the case, therapists, social workers, even the researchers, the emotional impact was also significant. Working with families in such situations, witnessing firsthand the raw and incessant pain, carries a considerable psychological weight. Many developed a personal connection to the case, a determination that goes beyond the professional. They want answers not only because it's their job, but because they know Mrs. Celia, because they saw Sophia grow up with this pain, because they feel the injustice of family trapped in an endless limbo. Donna Celia began participating in support groups for families of missing persons. There she found other people who understand exactly what she is going through. People who live with the same agonizing uncertainty, with the same stubborn hope that refuses to die. These groups became a fundamental support network, a place where she can express her darkest fears without judgment, where she can cry without having to be strong, where she can share the journey with people who truly understand. In a way, she has become a voice for other families in similar situations. She participates in campaigns for legislative changes that could help in disappearance investigations, speaks at public events about the importance of not giving up on seeking answers, and uses her pain as a tool to try to prevent other families from going through the same thing. It's a way of finding purpose in tragedy, of transforming suffering into something that can, in some way, generate a positive impact. But in the quiet moments, when the cameras are off and people leave, she's just a mother who wants her son back. A mother who looks at the door every time she hears a noise, hoping it's Daniel finally coming home. A mother who keeps her cell phone always nearby, always charged, always on. Because what if it's him trying to call? What if it's the police with news? Every ring of the phone makes her heart race. Every unread message carries a possibility that never materializes. The hidden truth behind cases like Daniel's is that they don't just destroy one life. They destroy entire families, transform communities, and leave scars on everyone touched by the tragedy. And these scars don't disappear with time. They simply become part of people's emotional landscape, a constant reminder that life can change in an instant, that the people we love could be taken from us without warning, without explanation, without a chance to say goodbye. Comment below. Strength to the family if you feel their pain and want them to know they are not alone in this fight. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because after going through this entire investigative journey, after meeting Daniel, after hearing that disturbing audio, after exploring the theories and understanding the family suffering, we've reached a point where we need to look at all of this from a broader perspective. We need to understand not only what happened, but what this case represents, what it teaches us about the nature of unsolved mysteries, and about the importance of never giving up on seeking the truth. Let's recap what we know. Daniel was a 26-year-old, hard-working young man, well-liked by everyone, with no known enemies and no involvement in anything suspicious. On a Tuesday night in March, he received messages from an unknown number, left home saying he would be right back, and simply disappeared. 3 days later, the police discovered a 47-second audio recording on a cell phone, capturing what appeared to be his last conscious moments. In this audio, there are noises of movement, tense voices, an unknown voice giving orders, and then silence. Since that night, no one has seen or heard from Daniel again. The police investigation was extensive. Searches were conducted. Dozens of people were interviewed. Forensic analyses were performed, and cutting-edge technology was employed. But despite all this effort, the case remains unsolved. There is no body, no identified suspect, no clear explanation of what happened. There's only that enigmatic audio recording and a devastated family searching for answers that always seem out of reach. Theories vary. A kidnapping that never resulted in a ransom demand. A meeting that went terribly wrong. Accidental involvement in something dangerous. An accident followed by a desperate cover-up. Each theory has its merits. Each explains some aspect of the case, but none explains everything. And it is precisely this lack of a complete and coherent narrative that makes the case so frustrating and at the same time so fascinating. The unknown voice in the audio remains the greatest enigma. Who is this person? Why does no one recognize them? What did they want with Daniel? These questions echo unanswered, and as long as this identity remains hidden, the chances of solving the case diminish with each passing day, because deep down that voice is the key. Finding the owner of that voice would mean finding the answers everyone is looking for. But here's something important we need to understand. Unsolved cases like Daniel's aren't just police statistics. They aren't just dusty files in some police station. They represent interrupted lives, shattered families, shaken communities. Each unsolved case is a reminder that our system, however hard it tries, doesn't always manage to deliver justice. And that's not necessarily the fault of any specific person, but rather a harsh reality about the complexity of certain situations, about how sometimes the evidence simply doesn't exist or can't be found. What really happened that day? That's the question that haunts everyone involved. What led Daniel to leave home and never return? What was the exact moment when everything went wrong? Was there a point where he realized he was in danger, where he tried to escape but couldn't? Or was it all so fast that he didn't even have time to process what was happening? These questions will probably never have definitive answers, but that doesn't mean we should stop asking them. The importance of keeping cases like this alive, of continuing to talk about them, of never letting them be forgotten, cannot be underestimated. Because the truth is that every time someone hears Daniel's story, there's a chance, however small, that that person saw something, knows something, remembers something that could be relevant. Perhaps it's a detail that seemed insignificant at the time, but in the context of this larger story makes perfect sense. Perhaps it's a connection that only becomes obvious when you know all the details of the case. And here's something many people don't understand. Solving old cases isn't impossible. There are countless examples of cases that remain unsolved for years, sometimes decades, and were suddenly solved because a new witness came forward, because new technology allowed for the reanalysis of old evidence, or because someone finally decided to speak about something they had kept secret. The transformation that time brings can paradoxically sometimes work in favor of justice. People who are afraid to speak may finally find courage. Technologies that didn't exist at the time of the crime can now reveal hidden truths in old evidence. Daniel's case could be one of those. That audio, which has already been analyzed dozens of times, could be reanalyzed with even more advanced technologies that will emerge in the future. The unknown voice could eventually be compared with new databases, with recordings that were not previously available. Someone who was afraid to speak could finally decide that it's time to reveal what they know. The possibilities exist, even if they seem remote. And that's why the family's appeal remains so important. They're not asking for much. They're not asking for revenge. They're not asking for harsh punishments beyond what the law allows. They just want to know what happened. They want to be able to bury Daniel, if that's the case. They want to look the person responsible in the eye and ask why. Fundamentally, they want what we all want when we lose someone: understanding, closure, the chance to fully process the loss. The mindset we need to adopt regarding unsolved cases is one of empathetic persistence. Persistence because we cannot allow these cases to be forgotten, for the victims to become mere names in old reports. And empathy because we need to remember that behind each case there are real people suffering, people who wake up every day with that latent pain, with that unanswered question hammering in their minds. Every clue, no matter how small, can make a difference. That conversation you overheard in a bar years ago that seemed strange at the time, that car you saw parked in an unusual place, that acquaintance who suddenly changed their behavior without apparent explanation. Details that in isolation mean nothing, but when connected to a specific case, can reveal a pattern, can point a direction, can be the missing piece of the puzzle. The impact of solving a case like Daniel's goes far beyond bringing justice to a specific family. It restores faith in the system, shows that persistence pays off, encourages others to keep fighting for answers in their own cases. And perhaps most importantly, it sends a clear message to those who commit crimes thinking they will get away with it. Time may pass, but the truth has a way of eventually coming to light. Daniel's story didn't end that March night. It continues every day in the family's pain, in the investigator's determination, in the curiosity of those who know the case and refuse to forget. And as long as there are people willing to ask questions, to seek answers, to keep his memory alive, there is hope. Hope that one day, somehow, the truth hidden behind that disturbing audio will finally be revealed. Hope that Miss Cecilia can finally find peace. Hope that Sophia can finally grieve properly. Hope that Daniel, wherever he is, knows he has not been forgotten. Because ultimately, that's the greatest tribute we can pay to someone who was lost under mysterious circumstances. Never stop searching. Never stop asking. Never accept silence as a final answer. Write this down. I will never forget Daniel. If you believe that keeping the story alive can make a difference, if you've made it this far, to this final moment with me, it's because you understand that stories like Daniel shouldn't be forgotten. And look, that means a lot. It means you're not just another passive spectator. You're someone who truly cares, who is willing to invest time to learn about real cases with the depth they deserve. And it's precisely for people like you that I create this content. If this type of investigation, this deep dive into cases that affect us, makes sense to you, subscribe to the channel. Because here we don't treat these stories as cheap entertainment. We treat them with the respect that the victims and their families deserve. Every week there's a new case, a new story that needs to be told. And I want you on this journey with me. And look, leave a comment now saying, I made it to the end. Just that simple phrase. Because I read all the comments, and knowing that you were with me all these minutes, that you absorbed every detail of this story, motivates me to continue bringing this kind of content. Your presence here matters more than you imagine. And if Daniel's story touched you in any way, if you felt that connection with the family's pain, with the frustration of not having answers, leave a like. It's not just a number to me. It's a way for you to say that this content has value, that it's worthwhile to continue exploring these cases with seriousness and empathy. There's a video over here about another equally disturbing case, where a text message completely changed the course of an investigation. If you like this approach, this way of telling real stories, click and continue with me there. We have much more to explore together. Thank you for being here. Really, until the next case.